I begged my parents to come when my 7-year-old was rushed into emergency surgery. They didn't even respond. 3 days later, they tried to sell my $480,000 house using forged documents with my name on them. I tracked every piece of their scheme: the fake power of attorney, the secret listing, the $15,000 buyer deposit already in escrow. Then I set my trap. By the time they walked into that closing room, thinking they'd won, the cameras were rolling, the cops were waiting, and so was my revenge. My name is Lauren Pierce, and I've spent most of my 34 years being the responsible one in my family. That Tuesday night in March, sitting in the pediatric surgery waiting room at Nationwide Children's Hospital, I finally understood what being alone truly meant. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, casting everything in that harsh, unforgiving hospital white. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at my phone screen: 3 calls to Mom, 2 to Dad, 4 to my sister Tessa, all marked seen in our family group chat, all ignored. Ethan's going into emergency surgery. I'd typed at 11:43 p. Appendicitis. Please come. Nothing. The waiting room smelled like industrial disinfectant mixed with old coffee. A television mounted in the corner played some late-night infomercial on mute. Another mother sat across from me, her husband's arm around her shoulders as their toddler slept between them. I looked away. 6 hours earlier, Ethan had been fine. We'd had dinner, his favorite mac and cheese with the little hot dogs cut up in it, and watched 2 episodes of that cartoon about rescue dogs he loved. Then, at 9:30 p.m., he'd stumbled into my room, tears streaming down his face, clutching his right side. "Mommy, it hurts so bad." The drive to the ER was a blur. The triage nurse took one look at him and fast-tracked us through. Blood tests, ultrasound, the surgical consent forms that my trembling signature barely resembled my usual neat script. Dr. Martinez, the pediatric surgeon, had kind eyes behind her glasses when she explained that Ethan's appendix needed to come out immediately. "Is there someone you'd like us to call?" she'd asked gently. "Family who can sit with you." Family. The word felt like a joke. I refreshed my phone again at 12:17 a.m. Mom had posted a photo on Facebook 20 minutes ago, her and Dad at some wine bar in German Village with Tessa and her boyfriend Tyler. "Celebrating good news coming soon." The caption read, "My 7-year-old son was being wheeled into an operating room, and they were having Pinot Grigio." I tried calling Mom again. This time, she declined after 2 rings. At North Lake Capital, where I worked as a senior financial advisor, I was known for my composure. Clients trusted me with their retirement portfolios, their kids' college funds, their entire financial futures. I could calculate compound interest in my head and spot a bad investment from a mile away. But sitting in that waiting room, I felt like I was drowning in the silence from my own family. The surgery took 93 minutes. I know because I counted every one of them. When Dr. Martinez finally emerged at 1:51 am, still in her surgical cap, I nearly collapsed with relief. "Everything went perfectly," she said, touching my shoulder. "He did great. You can see him in recovery in about 20 minutes. My phone buzzed as she walked away. Finally, a text from Mom. But it wasn't about Ethan. "Hi, sweetie. Know it's late, but are you free this weekend? Need to discuss some real estate matters with you. Important family business about property values in Worthington. Kiss Ethan for me." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Not, "Is Ethan okay?" Not, "We're on our way." Not even, "Sorry we missed your calls." Real estate matters. Property values in Worthington. My house was in Worthington, growing up in Dayton, Ohio. I learned early that love in the Pierce family came with price tags and conditions. Tessa was the golden child, pretty, bubbly, perpetually between jobs and boyfriends. I was the one who had her head on straight, which translated to the one who could be counted on to write checks. By 14. I was helping Dad fill out his tax forms because "you're so good with numbers," Lauren. By 18, I'd co-signed my first loan. Mom needed a new car after she'd totaled hers texting and driving, though the official story was mechanical failure. By 25, fresh out of my MBA program at Ohio State, I was refinancing my parents' mortgage to save them from foreclosure. Just this once, Mom had promised, dabbing at tears that disappeared the moment the papers were signed. "You're saving our lives, sweetie." Just this once became just this twice, then became a pattern I couldn't break. $2,800 for Tessa's security deposit when she got evicted, $4,000 for Dad's investment opportunity that turned out to be a pyramid scheme, $6,000 for Mom's credit card debt from her QVC addiction. I kept every receipt, every bank statement, every canceled check in a filing cabinet in my home office. The folder was 3 inches thick. The thing about being the responsible one is that everyone assumes you don't need help. When Ethan's father walked out when I was 7 months pregnant, Mom's first response was, "Well, you'll figure it out. You always do." When I graduated summa cum laude while working full-time and raising a toddler alone, Dad said, "That's our Lauren, never needs anybody." Well, last year, I finally bought my own place, a 3-bedroom colonial in Worthington with original hardwood floors and a backyard big enough for Ethan to practice soccer. $480,000, 20% down from my own savings. No co-signers needed. The first thing that was truly, completely mine. Mom's reaction when she saw it. "Awfully big for just the two of you. Houses like this are meant for real families." Real families. As if Ethan and I didn't count. They'd been dropping hints ever since. "Property taxes must be killing you. These old houses, the maintenance never ends. You know, if you ever need to downsize, we could help you handle the sale. Keep it in the family. Avoid those realtor fees." Tessa was less subtle. 2 weeks ago, over coffee, she'd mentioned her boyfriend Tyler's cousin who worked in real estate. "He specializes in quick, quiet sales," she'd said, stirring her latte with unnecessary focus. "You know, for people who need to move money around fast, he could probably get you above asking. Cash deal. No questions asked. I'm not selling Tessa. I'm just saying, if you ever needed to, or if the family needed you to." The family. Everything always came back to what the family needed. Sitting in that hospital recovery room, watching my son sleep off the anesthesia with his small hand in mine, I thought about all the times I'd rushed to answer their calls, the Thanksgiving I'd spent at a payday loan office getting Mom out of a bind, the Christmas Eve I'd spent on the phone with credit card companies negotiating Dad's debts, the birthday parties I'd left early to bail Tessa out of whatever crisis she'd created. Not once, not a single time had any of them shown up for me when I needed them. My phone vibrated again at 3:15 a month. Another text from Tessa. "Mom says you're not answering about the weekend meeting. Tyler's cousin says the market in Worthington is perfect right now. You could make a killing. We already have some ideas about buyers who'd pay cash immediately. Family first." Right. Family first. I almost laughed, but I didn't want to wake Ethan. I knew then, with absolute certainty, that whatever they were planning involved my house. The house I'd bought with my own money, my own credit, my own signature on every document. They didn't know I'd changed the locks last month after Tessa had borrowed my spare key and returned it late. They didn't know I'd installed security cameras after Mom had shown up uninvited with a potential buyer who just wanted to peek inside. They thought I was still that 14-year-old girl, eager to please, afraid to say no. They were about to learn otherwise. 3 days after Ethan's surgery, we were home. He was propped up on the couch with his Nintendo Switch, healing beautifully, when my phone rang at 10:20 Mom. "Lauren. Wonderful news, Tessa's engaged." I forced enthusiasm into my voice. "That's great. Mom. When did Tyler propose?" "Last night, at that new restaurant in the short north. The ring is gorgeous, 2 carats, princess cut. You know Tyler comes from money." Of course she'd mention that. "Anyway," Mom continued without taking a breath, "we need $10,000 for the wedding dress. Tessa has her heart set on this designer gown from that boutique in Dublin, and they need the deposit today. Today, Lauren. You know how these exclusive places are." I watched Ethan carefully navigate his game character through a virtual obstacle course. His medical bills would start arriving soon. Even with insurance, my portion would be at least $3,000. Mom, I can't do $10,000. Ethan just had surgery. Oh, please, he's fine now. Isn't he? This is Tessa's wedding. Her only wedding. Don't you want your sister to be happy? Of course I do, but family helps family. Lauren, when have we ever asked you for anything? I nearly dropped the phone. When have they asked the Excel spreadsheet on my laptop documented $73,000 over the past decade? I can maybe do 1,000 to help with 1,000. Mom's voice turned sharp. You live in a $500,000 house and you'll give your only sister $1,000 for her wedding. Mom, that house is mortgaged. I have bills. Ethan's medical expenses. You're a financial advisor at that fancy firm downtown. Don't pretend you're struggling. We know what someone in your position makes. They knew my title. They didn't know I'd taken a pay cut last year to have more flexible hours for Ethan. They didn't know because they'd never asked. I need to go. Mom, Ethan needs his medication. This conversation isn't over. She hung up. 15 minutes later, Dad called, then Tessa. Then Mom again. I let them all go to voicemail. That afternoon, while Ethan napped, I checked our shared emergency fund account, the one I'd foolishly set up years ago with Mom and Dad as co-signers, just in case something happened to me and they needed to access money for Ethan. The balance should have been $8,000. It was $300. The transaction history made my stomach turn. Small withdrawals over the past month, all with vague memo lines, family emergency. Temporary loan, wedding planning expense. The most recent, just yesterday, $2,500. Memo line, dress deposit advance. They'd already taken the money. The whole conversation this morning had been theater. I was screen capping the transaction history when an email notification popped up. The sender was listed as Riverstone Title Company. The subject line, Seller Document Package, 4847 Meadowbrook Lane. That was my address. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a comprehensive seller's packet disclosure forms, settlement statements, a estimated proceeds worksheet showing my supposed net profit from the sale of my house, $480,000 sale price, estimated seller proceeds of $390,000 after paying off my mortgage. The email was addressed to me but CC'd to someone named Brad Kellerman at Kellerman Elite Realty. Tyler's cousin, presumably. At the bottom of the email, a cheerful note. Mrs. Pierce, thank you for choosing Riverstone Title for your expedited sale. Per your power of attorney representative, Mrs. Marla Pierce, we understand you're currently traveling extensively for work and need this transaction completed quickly. We've already received the initial earnest money deposit of $15,000 from your buyer. Looking forward to closing next Friday. Next Friday. 7 days from now? I sat perfectly still for 30 seconds, processing what I was reading. Then I called the number listed for Riverstone Title. Hi, this is Lauren Pierce. I just received a seller packet for my property on Meadowbrook Lane. Oh yes, Mrs. Pierce. Your mother has been wonderful to work with. She explained you're doing that medical consulting work overseas Singapore. Right. So exciting. She has all your documents in order. The buyer is thrilled to be getting such a beautiful home. I'm sorry. What documents? The power of attorney, of course. Notarized and everything. Your mother can sign on your behalf at closing since you can't be there. We have it all on file. I maintained my professional voice somehow. Could you email me a copy of that POA for my records? Of course, sending it now. The document arrived 60 seconds later. There was my name, my former address from 2 years ago, my signature, except it wasn't my signature. Close, but not quite. The notary seal was from a postal office in Hilliard, dated 5 days ago. When I was sitting in the hospital with Ethan, I zoomed in on the power of attorney document. My financial advisor brain cataloging every discrepancy. The address was wrong. They'd used my old apartment in Clintonville, not my current Worthington address. The signature was a decent attempt, but the L in Lauren was too looped, the P in Pierce too sharp. Amateur work. The notary seal showed Jennifer Hoffman, commission $0847293. I wrote it down. My next call was to Brad Kellerman at Kellerman Elite Realty. He answered on the first ring, eager as a puppy. Lauren, your mom said you'd probably be reaching out. How's Singapore? I hear the medical consulting work there is incredibly lucrative. I'm not in Singapore. Brad, I'm in Columbus, in my house. The one you're apparently trying to sell. Silence. Then, there must be some confusion. Your mother said, My mother doesn't have the authority to sell my house. How exactly did this listing happen? It's not technically listed. His voice dropped to a confidential tone. This is what we call a pocket listing. Off-market. Your family said you needed a quick, quiet sale for tax purposes. The buyer is paying cash, full asking price, as is condition, no inspection contingency. It's a dream deal, honestly. Who's the buyer? Investment group out of Dublin. They're purchasing several properties in Worthington for rental income. Your mother said you needed the money liquidated fast for some overseas investment opportunity. Everything clicked. They weren't just stealing my house, they'd created an entire elaborate story to explain why it had to happen fast, why I couldn't be there, why everything had to be so secretive. Brad, I need you to listen very carefully. I never authorized this sale. The POA is fraudulent. If this moves forward, you'll be party to felony fraud. That's a serious accusation. The documents looked legitimate. Your mother, your father, your sister. They all confirmed when? At our meeting Tuesday morning, 10:30 a.m. at the Starbucks in Worthington. Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. while I was bringing Ethan home from the hospital. Send me everything, Brad, every document, every email, every text message, now. I could lose my license if you'll definitely lose it if you proceed with fraudulent sale of a property. Send me everything, and maybe we can sort this out without involving the authorities. 20 minutes later, my inbox was full. The conspiracy was more thorough than I'd imagined. There were emails from Mom's account to Brad dated back 2 weeks, expressing my urgent need to sell. Text messages from Tessa coordinating showing times while I was at work. A download from the MLS system showing my house as coming soon, pocket listing with interior photos that could only have been taken when I wasn't home. They'd used my spare key, the one Tessa had borrowed. The Franklin County Recorder's Office was my next call. After being transferred 3 times, I reached someone in the fraud prevention unit. We can see a pending document was submitted for recording. The clerk informed me. Purchase agreement dated yesterday. Pending title transfer. The seller's signature appears to be via POA. That POA is fraudulent. I need to file an emergency stop on this transaction. You'll need to submit an affidavit of fraud in person, with proper identification. Can you come in today? Yes. What else do I need? Any evidence of the fraud. The false POA, proof of your actual whereabouts, documentation showing you didn't authorize this. We take title fraud very seriously. My last call was to the Ohio Notary Commission. Jennifer Hoffman was real, but she'd been incredibly sloppy. I need to verify a notarization. I told the commission clerk. Can you confirm if Jennifer Hoffman notarized a document on March 15th at 2:45 p.m. After a brief hold? According to her journal, she had 3 notarizations that day. 2:15 p.m., 3:20 p.m., and 4 p.m. Nothing at 2:45 p.m. The document I have shows 2:45 p.m. Then you have a falsified notarization. Ma'am, that's a 5th-degree felony in Ohio. Would you like to file a complaint? Yes, I would. I printed everything: the fake POA, the real estate documents, the emails, the bank statements showing the emergency fund theft, my hospital records proving I was with Ethan during their Starbucks plotting session. The stack was an inch thick. Then I noticed something else in Brad's emails, a forwarded message from the buyers with their proof of funds and a note, earnest money wire sent, $15,000 as agreed, looking forward to closing quickly. $15,000 of some innocent investor's money, already in escrow. My family had involved real victims beyond just me. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to stop this. I was going to expose them completely. The law office of Avery Holt and Associates sat in a restored Victorian in German Village, all exposed brick and modern glass. Avery herself was my opposite tall where I was average, calm where I was seething, methodical where I wanted to burn everything down. "This is actually elegant," she said, reviewing my stack of evidence. "They created a paper trail so comprehensive they've basically prosecuted themselves." "I want them arrested," I said flatly. "You could do that." Avery leaned back in her leather chair. "Felony fraud, identity theft, attempted grand theft. Your parents and sister would likely face 5 to 10 years. The thought of Ethan visiting his grandparents in prison made me pause. "But," Avery continued, "there's another way. One that ensures you get justice. The buyers get their money back, and you maintain complete control over how this ends." "I'm listening." "We let the closing move forward under our supervision. File the affidavit of fraud with the county, but request they delay action. Put a title fraud alert on the property that only we can see. Then, we invite everyone to a very special closing day." "Why would we do that?" "Because right now, they think they've won. The moment you file criminal charges, they lawyer up, claim misunderstanding, maybe even try to pin it on each other. But if they show up to that closing, sign those documents in front of witnesses, actually attempt to complete the fraudulent transfer." She smiled. "That's federal wire fraud. That's conspiracy. That's charges they can't wiggle out of. You want to catch them in the act. I want to give them every opportunity to stop themselves and document their choice not to. We'll have the county sheriff's fraud unit on standby. The title company will be fully briefed. The buyers will be protected. We'll ensure their funds are secure. But your family, they'll have to make a choice, on camera, in front of legal witnesses." I thought about Mom's manufactured tears, Dad's enabling silence, Tessa's casual greed. What do I need to do? First, we file papers with the county affidavit of identity fraud, title fraud alert, and an emergency injunction. But we mark them sealed pending investigation. Then we send a very specific cease and desist to the title company, copied to their legal department, explaining the situation but requesting they proceed with closing preparations under legal supervision. Won't they just cancel everything? Not if we frame it correctly. Title companies have insurance for exactly this situation. They'll want to document the attempted fraud for their claim. We'll have them require all parties to appear in person, with valid ID, for the closing. No exceptions. Over the next 2 days, Avery orchestrated everything with surgical precision. The Franklin County Recorder's Office filed our papers under seal. The title company's legal team agreed to cooperate fully. The county sheriff's white-collar crime unit assigned 2 detectives to the case. I hired a private investigator, a former forensic accountant, to dig deeper. What he found was illuminating. Dad had $60,000 in gambling debts to a bookie in Youngstown. Mom had been kiting checks between 3 bank accounts, floating $20,000 in phantom money. Tessa didn't even have an engagement ring yet. Tyler had dumped her a week ago when she'd asked him to co-sign a loan. The $10,000 wedding dress story, complete fiction. Meanwhile, I played my part. When Mom texted asking about weekend plans, I replied that I was swamped with Ethan's recovery. When Tessa called to guilt-trip me about the wedding money, I let it go to voicemail. They needed to believe their plan was working. Avery had me set up something else, a colleague from Northlake Capital named James, who did freelance videography on the side. He'd document everything with 3 hidden cameras at the closing, completely legal in Ohio as long as one party consented to recording. We're also inviting the buyers to a special walkthrough, Avery explained. Day of closing, at your actual house. They deserve to know what they've walked into. If they're legitimate, and they appear to be, they'll likely become witnesses for our side. The masterstroke was the document analysis. Avery hired a forensic document examiner who confirmed what I already knew: the signature was forged. But worse, they'd used a signature stamp. She found microscopic pressure patterns consistent with a rubber stamp, not a human hand. They'd literally bought a signature stamp online with my name on it. "This elevates it," Avery said. "Possession of a fraudulent signature stamp shows premeditation, planning, intent to commit ongoing fraud. They probably plan to use it again." The final piece fell into place Thursday afternoon. The notary, Jennifer Hoffman, when confronted with evidence of the falsified time on her seal, immediately cooperated. She remembered them clearly. The mother was pushy, Jennifer told the detective over the phone, while I listened. Kept saying her daughter was overseas, desperately needed this done. The father seemed uncomfortable. The younger woman, the sister. She's the one who actually brought the pre-signed document. I should have refused, but they were so insistent, and it was just a time adjustment. "They brought a pre-signed document," the detective asked. "Yes." Said the daughter had signed it before leaving for Singapore. Another lie documented. Another nail in their legal coffin. Friday morning closing day, I stood in my kitchen, looking at the family photos still hanging on my wall. There was one from last Christmas. Mom, Dad, Tessa, Ethan, and me, all smiling in front of my tree. In this house, the house they were trying to steal. I took it off the wall, turned it over. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "Family is everything." I almost laughed. Then I set it face down on the counter and went to wake up Ethan for the neighbor's house. He didn't need to see what was about to happen. The doorbell rang at 1 p.m. sharp. I'd been expecting them. Avery had confirmed all parties were planning to attend the walkthrough before heading to the title company. Through the peephole, I saw Mom in her best church dress, the navy one with pearls. Dad wore his only suit. Tessa had on what looked like a new outfit, probably purchased with my emergency fund money. Brad Kellerman stood behind them, looking uncomfortable. I opened the door with my phone already recording audio. "Lauren." Mom's surprise seemed genuine for exactly 2 seconds before shifting to calculation. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Singapore." I stepped aside. "Come in, all of you." They filed in slowly. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Tessa was texting furiously. Brad cleared his throat. "Mrs. Pierce, your mother said you were participating via power of attorney due to travel. Brad, why don't you have a seat?" I gestured to my living room, where I'd strategically placed documents on the coffee table. "The buyers should be here any moment." "The buyers?" Mom's voice pitched higher. "Why would the buyers come here? Standard final walkthrough. You did say this was an as-is cash sale, right? They'll want to verify the property condition." The doorbell rang again. This time it was the buyers, a middle-aged couple, the Nguyens, who'd legitimately been looking for an investment property. Avery had briefed them that morning about the situation. They'd agreed to attend and observe, their $15,000 earnest money now protected by Avery's intervention with the title company. "Mr. and Mrs. Nguyen," I said warmly, shaking their hands. "Welcome to my home." Mom went pale. "Your home, sweetie. We discussed nothing." I turned on the digital recorder app on my phone, placing it visibly on the mantel. "Before we go any further, I want everyone to be aware that this conversation is being recorded for legal purposes." "Legal purposes?" Tessa finally looked up from her phone. "What's going on?" I picked up the first document from the coffee table, the forged POA. "Mom, is this your signature as witness?" She glanced at it, then at Dad. "I don't understand what—" "It's a simple question. Did you sign this power of attorney as a witness? You needed someone to handle things while you were away." "I haven't been away." "I've been at Nationwide Children's Hospital with Ethan, then home recovering with him." "Brad, did my mother tell you I was in Singapore?" Brad nodded slowly, his real estate smile completely gone. "She said you were doing urgent medical consulting work overseas." "Mr. Nguyen," I turned to the buyer. "Were you told I was unavailable to complete this transaction in person?" "Yes." Mr. Nguyen said carefully. "We were told you had an urgent situation abroad and your mother was handling the sale with full authority." I picked up the next document, Jennifer Hoffman's notary log. This shows the notary who supposedly verified this POA had no appointment at 2:45 p.m. on March 15th. Tessa, you brought this document to her, correct? I don't, Mom said. Mom said what? Exactly. Mom stood up. This is ridiculous. We're family. We were trying to help you liquidate an asset you clearly can't afford. By forging my signature, by lying to buyers, by attempting to steal $480,000. Steal! Dad finally spoke, his voice weak. We weren't stealing. We were going to give you the money after what? After taking what you needed, like the $8,000 you already drained from Ethan's emergency fund. Tessa gasped. 8,000, Mom. You said Lauren agreed. Shut up, Tessa. Mom's mask was slipping. Not in front of strangers. These strangers, I said calmly, are victims of your fraud scheme. Their $15,000 is sitting in escrow for a house sale that's completely illegitimate. Mrs. Nguyen spoke for the first time. We had no idea. The listing seemed legitimate. The documentation looked official. Because they worked very hard to make it look that way. I pulled out my hospital records. Here's where I actually was when this POA was supposedly signed. Here's Ethan's surgical records. Here's the timestamp from the hospital parking garage. While my son was having emergency surgery, you were plotting to steal his home. Brad was backing toward the door. I need to call my broker. Sit down, Brad. The voice came from behind him. Detective Patricia Walsh from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office walked in, having been waiting on my porch. We'll need a statement from you. Mom's face went from pale to gray. You called the police on your own mother. No, Mom. You committed felony fraud against your own daughter. I just reported it. Detective Walsh pulled out her notebook. Ma'am, I need to see identification from everyone here. This is entrapment, Mom sputtered. She set us up. No, ma'am, she documented your crimes. There's a significant difference. Tessa started crying. Lauren, please. I didn't know. I thought you agreed. Mom said you needed the money for something important. Important like your fake wedding Tyler dumped you last week. Tessa, I know there's no engagement. The room went silent except for Tessa's sobbing. Detective Walsh looked at each of them. You have two choices. You can come to the title company, confess to the attempted fraud in front of their legal team, and sign Lauren's agreement. Or I can arrest you right now for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. What agreement? Dad asked weakly. I pulled out the document Avery had prepared. Full confession. Restitution of the emergency fund money. No contact order. You sign it. You walk away. You refuse. You leave in handcuffs. Mom laughed bitterly. You'd send your own parents to jail. You'd steal your own daughter's home while her son was in surgery. The Nguyens stood. Mr. Nguyen looked at me with sympathy. We'll testify to everything we witnessed, if needed. Thank you. Avery Holt will ensure your earnest money is returned immediately. As they left, Mom made one last attempt. Lauren, sweetie, we're family. No, I said quietly. Family shows up when your child is scared in a hospital. Family doesn't forge signatures or drain emergency funds or plot theft over wine while pretending everything's fine. Detective Walsh stepped forward. What's it going to be? The conference room at Riverstone Title Company had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking High Street. At 3 p.m., everyone was there. My parents, Tessa, Brad Kellerman with his broker, the Nguyens, 2 representatives from the title company's legal department, and Detective Walsh. James had already set up 3 cameras at different angles, all recording. Avery stood at the head of the table like a conductor preparing her orchestra. She'd arranged everything perfectly, the fraudulent documents displayed on one side, the legitimate papers on the other, a court reporter in the corner transcribing every word. Let's begin, Avery said, sliding a document across to the title company's senior counsel. This is an affidavit of fraud filed with Franklin County. The POA used to initiate this transaction has been confirmed as forgery. The title company lawyer, a stern woman named Patricia Stearns, examined the papers. Our forensic expert confirms the notary seal was tampered with. The timestamp doesn't match the notary's official log. She turned to Mom. Mrs. Pierce, did you present this power of attorney to us as a legitimate? Mom's hands trembled. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest, Detective Walsh clarified. Yet, this is your opportunity to resolve this civilly. Avery pulled out a manila folder. I have here 10 years of financial records showing a pattern. $73,000 transferred from Lauren to various family members, loans never repaid, emergency funds depleted without consent. This attempted theft of a $480,000 property is simply the culmination. It's not theft, Mom burst out. I'm her mother. That house we helped her. How? I asked quietly. How did you help me buy that house? Silence. Did you contribute to the down payment? No, but co-sign the mortgage. We couldn't because pay a single mortgage payment, property tax insurance premium. Mom's jaw clenched. We gave you life. We raised you. And I've been paying for that privilege ever since I turned 14. Brad's broker finally spoke. We had no knowledge of the fraud. Mr. Kellerman was told this was a legitimate family transaction. With a pocket listing. Avery challenged. Off-market. Cash only. Must close in a week. No red flags there. Brad shifted uncomfortably. It's not illegal to do pocket listings. No, but it's illegal to proceed when informed of fraud. Detective Walsh looked at him steadily. Lauren notified you 2 days ago. Did you report it to your broker? Brad's broker turned sharply to him. You knew. The court reporter's fingers flew across her stenograph. Avery placed another document on the table. This is the agreement. Full confession of the attempted fraud. Restitution of $8,000 from the emergency fund. Permanent no-contact order unless Lauren initiates communication. Sign it, and this stays civil. And if we don't? Dad asked. Detective Walsh stood. Arrest warrants are already prepared. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, forgery, and notarial fraud for whoever carried that stamp. What stamp? Tessa asked weakly. I pulled it from my purse, the signature stamp they'd ordered online, discovered in Tessa's apartment during the investigation. This one. The one with my forged signature. Amazon keeps purchase records. Tessa. It was shipped to your address. Tessa broke completely. Mom told me to order it. She said it was for convenience, that you'd approved it, that busy people do this all the time. Shut up, Mom hissed. No. Tessa turned on her. You said Lauren wouldn't even notice you said she owed us, that she was selfish keeping all that money to herself when family needed it. The court reporter captured every word. Mr. Nguyen cleared his throat. We'd like our earnest money returned immediately. Patricia Stearns nodded. The wire reversal is already prepared. You'll have your funds by close of business. Now, Avery said, placing 3 copies of the agreement on the table. Decision time. Mom grabbed the papers, reading frantically. This says we can never contact Lauren or Ethan again. Unless I initiate contact, I clarified, which I won't. You're cutting us off forever. You tried to steal my home while my son was in surgery. What did you expect? But we're your parents, who chose money over your grandson's well-being. Dad picked up a pen with shaking hands. If I sign this, no jail. No criminal charges for the fraud, Detective Walsh confirmed, though the notary fraud investigation will continue separately for Ms. Hoffman. Dad signed immediately. His signature looked like an earthquake had hit mid-letter. Tessa signed next, mascara streaming down her face. Lauren, I'm sorry. I didn't. Save it, I said flatly. You made your choice when you ordered that stamp. All eyes turned to Mom. She sat rigid, staring at the paper like it might catch fire. Marla, Dad pleaded, just sign it. This is my daughter. She can't just, I can and I am. I stood, gathering my legitimate documents. You have 60 seconds to decide. Sign, or Detective Walsh makes the arrest. Your choice. You planned this whole thing, Mom said, her voice venomous. The cameras, the witnesses. I protected myself. Something you taught me, actually. Nobody looks out for you but you. Remember, you used to say that whenever I asked why Tessa got new clothes and I got hand-me-downs. 40 seconds. If you send me to jail, who'll take care of your father? His heart. His gambling debts. You mean, yeah, I know about those too. 60,000 to a bookie in Youngstown. Dad's face crumbled. 20 seconds. Fine. Mom grabbed the pen, signing so hard she tore through the paper slightly. There, happy you've destroyed your family. No, I said calmly. You destroyed it when you chose greed over your grandson. I just documented it. Detective Walsh collected the signed agreements. These will be filed with the court. Any violation of the no-contact order will result in immediate arrest. The title company lawyer stamped void across the fraudulent POA with what seemed like excessive satisfaction. This transaction is officially canceled. All fraudulent documents will be forwarded to the appropriate authorities. Mom stood, Dad and Tessa following. At the door, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this when you need us. I needed you when Ethan was in surgery. You were drinking wine and planning this theft. The security guard at Riverstone Title held the door as they filed out. Mom walked with her spine rigid, her church dress wrinkled from sitting. Dad shuffled behind her like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Tessa was still crying, her new outfit stained with mascara. Detective Walsh turned to me. You did the right thing. I've seen too many cases where family members get away with this because victims won't press forward. What happens to them now? I asked. The no-contact order is permanent unless you petition to change it. If they violated a call, text, showing up at your house, they'll be arrested immediately. The fraud investigation continues, but with their confession, they've avoided prison. Brad Kellerman and his broker had slipped out during the signatures. Brad's real estate career likely over before it truly began. The Nguyens shook my hand before leaving. Thank you for protecting us, Mrs. Nguyen said. We would have lost everything. You were innocent victims. They knew that and didn't care. After everyone left, Avery and I stood in the empty conference room. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating the void stamp bleeding through the fraudulent POA. The restitution check will be enforced by the court, Avery said. They have 30 days to pay the $8,000 back, or we can garnish wages, put liens on property. They don't have property or jobs. Really? Then they better find some. James packed up his cameras, giving me a thumb drive with all the footage. This is all admissible if they ever challenge the agreement. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through Worthington. The trees were starting to bud with early spring green. Normal people were living normal lives, picking kids up from school, grabbing coffee, walking dogs. Nobody trying to steal their house. Mrs. Chen from next door was waiting on my porch with Ethan. He ran to me, careful of his healing incision. Mom, we made cookies. Chocolate chip, Mrs. Chen added with a smile. How did your meeting go? It's finished, I said simply. All of it. She squeezed my shoulder knowingly and headed home. That evening, Ethan and I sat on the couch, in our house that no one could take from us. He played his game while I reviewed the day's documents one last time. The no-contact order, the void stamp on the fraudulent POA, the written confessions. Mom, Ethan asked during a loading screen, why didn't Grandma and Grandpa visit me in the hospital? I dreaded this question. They couldn't make it, buddy. Will they visit soon? No, they're going to be away for a very long time. Oh, he considered this. Are you sad? I thought about it honestly. A little, but mostly I'm relieved. Why? Because now I know exactly who really loves us and who we can trust. Mrs. Chen. Yes, definitely Mrs. Chen. And James from your work. He's nice. Yes, James too. That's enough people, Ethan decided, returning to his game. We don't need a lot, just good ones. Out of the mouths of babes. My phone sat silent on the coffee table. No guilt trip texts, no manipulative calls, no demands for money wrapped in family obligation. For the first time in my adult life, I was free from the weight of their expectations, their crises, their endless needs. The house felt different somehow, lighter. Like it could finally just be our home instead of an asset they felt entitled to. I walked through each room, the kitchen where Ethan and I made Sunday pancakes, his bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, my office where I'd built my career one client at a time. They'd tried to take all of this, not because they needed it to survive, but because they believed they deserved it more than we did. The next morning, I had a locksmith come again, new locks, new deadbolts, a security system upgrade. The lawyer handling the restitution called to confirm the court filing. My bank helped me open entirely new accounts. Everything fresh, no connections to the past. 2 weeks later, a check arrived via certified mail. $8,000, paid through a cash advance on credit cards they'd somehow qualified for. No note, just the check, as legally required. I deposited it into Ethan's new emergency fund, an account only I could touch, at a completely different bank, with fraud alerts and dual authentication and every security measure available. Dennis tried to call once, 3 weeks after the signing. The moment his number appeared on my screen, I forwarded the screenshot to Detective Walsh. He was arrested at his work, a part-time position at a hardware store, and held for 6 hours before posting bail. He never tried again. Mom lasted 2 months before she showed up at Ethan's school, trying to pick him up for a grandma day. The school, already alerted and with her picture at the front desk marked "No Contact," called the police immediately. She spent a night in county jail. Tessa wrote me a letter that my lawyer returned unopened. Per my instructions, they learned, finally, that no meant no, that consequences were real, that being family didn't mean unlimited access to forgiveness or finances. 6 months later, Ethan's fully healed, back to soccer and sleepovers and being a regular 7-year-old. The house is ours, completely, unquestionably. Some nights I stand in my kitchen, looking at that empty space where the family photo used to hang, and feel nothing but peace. They chose money over my son's emergency. I chose my son over their greed. It wasn't even a choice, really. They tried to sell my house for $480,000 while my baby was in surgery. The only thing I sold was my obligation to forgive the unforgivable. Best deal I ever made. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed the line? I'd really like to hear your experiences.